Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca DeCicco. I'm here today to take you through our second webinar of the Built Digital South Australia series. This is our second webinar in a series of webinars and events that we host throughout the year, and I welcome you to the session today. So thank you for attending. We did have some technical difficulties there, but I'll continue. So apparently, Stuart, are you able to hear me? Because apparently the attendees can't hear me.
Can you hear me, Rebecca?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Yep, okay. I'll just ask the audience if they can hear me. If the audience can type into the questions dialogue if the audio is acceptable. Yep, they can hear me. Okay, great. Apparently a couple of people couldn't hear me, but I guess that was their technology, so I'll continue. Thanks, Stuart. So as I said, welcome to our Built Digital South Australia webinar, and I hope that you enjoy today's session. We have a very exciting presentation coming up. So the first thing I'd like to do is obviously acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the traditional custodians of the land on which we live and work. I'd also like to pay respect to our elders past, present and future. My name's Rebecca, as I mentioned, and I work with Oricon. I act as a principal digital enablement, but I'm also the chair and founder of Women in BIM. I also work, obviously, as one of the co-founders of Built Digital. I won't go into too much about what I do because a lot of you already know me through the events that we host throughout the year. But if you are interested in getting in touch with Built Digital SA, Women in BIM, or Oricon, please contact me with these details. So I guess the intention of today's, or really of the group in general, is to essentially act as a conduit between industry and what industry are doing in terms of the construction industry, technology and process, and to give our attendees an update on the varying BIM, digital engineering and wider digital initiatives of the construction industry across Australia. Built Digital SA, it essentially goes beyond just presenting on projects, but we do look at strategy, education and technology as obviously drivers for education, and we like to learn from each other and obviously share ideas. So we intend to support the industry by educating the industry and collaborating. I'd also like to thank our sponsors for the year, A2K of Inzero Company, Chris Sale Consulting, Alexander Simmons, Oricon, Lucid Consulting Australia. So if you are interested in getting involved on the sponsorship front or getting involved in any of our either virtual or face-to-face events, which I'll talk about later, please get in touch with the email address noted here. So as I mentioned, I'm sure Stuart today will touch on some of these things, but we know that there are varying changes to the way that we deliver projects. We know that different government initiatives are starting to pop up, not just in Australia, but obviously as a result of what's happening across Europe and also in other regions of the world. We know that in South Australia, maybe we're not quite there yet, but essentially we'd like to upskill the industry to act as a community group to influence that change. So we not only discuss building information modelling and digital engineering initiatives, but also wider digital built environment focus. So looking at digital and data focused technologies and processes that might impact on how we deliver digital replicas or twins of our assets, and even looking at smart cities in our urban digital landscapes and how the impact of digital assets can start to impact on how we utilise our cities. So again, thank you to Stuart today. What a great attendee and a presenter. But we have somebody of great value in our session today, Stuart Bull. Stuart is the Head of Digital Delivery Australia Hub at Laing. And essentially, Stuart today will be presenting on some of the tools they're developing in-house to drive consistencies in digital and obviously set minimum requirements for some of their projects. So while I pass over to Stuart, I'm sure you'll be able to present it, to introduce yourself better than I can. So thank you. One minute. There you go, Stuart. Bear with us, we're just moving to Stuart. Just can't hear you yet, Stuart.
Hi, sorry, it was,
Yep.
I was struggling to get off mute there. Apologies
Oh,
for
good.
that. Can you all hear me now and see my screen?
Yep.
Right, okay, I've turned on the webcam, so when that eventually starts working, that's fine. Well, thank you all for the attendance, and thanks to Rebecca and team for inviting me to this this session. It's a first for me, so I do honestly appreciate the opportunity to present. So I'm Stuart Bull, head of digital delivery for Laing Australia. Been in the business 8 years, 8.5 years, formerly 23 years at Arup. And in between that, I established the BIM Consulting Group at Architectus as a managing director, and then spent a period of time at Ridley & Co, which is now Willow. So I've had quite an interesting career so far. I am a structural civil engineer background, and got into the digital delivery opportunities probably about 20 years ago. So we've acknowledged country through Rebecca, so I won't go through that again, but as Laing we do have acknowledgement of country as well. What I will talk about over the next 30 minutes or so is how Laing are going to work, and basically defining a digital reset and really looking at connecting our group initiatives, not just here in Australia, but in our European hub as well, and how we're collaborating across initiatives with the digital minimal standards being the umbrella of connection of how we make our processes scalable, reportable, usable across all of our functions. So not just through 3D model use, but how do we report more effectively at a business level? How do we interact with our directors, project technical leads, project directors, and how do we interact with our clients more efficiently? So we'll start off with digital minimal standards, and then I'll run through 3 core initiatives, one being the digital component library, digital and modular bridges, and a product-based building solutions delivery. So in some ways, this is a bit of a back to the future. We've been doing these types of activities and outcomes for a number of years across Laing O'Rourke as a business. But this is, you know, that reset and really taking all the good stuff that we do, but driving this in a more consistent and standardized manner. So from our perspective, it's really our digital vision is about end-to-end digital enablement of the project of the future. That may sound a bit, oh, yeah, what does that actually mean? It really means how soon can a constructor be involved in a digital project or establishing a project digitally? traditionally we don't actually arrive at the beginning of a project. We arrive somewhere after a design has been progressed, and we are bidding a design for a client, and then we are either following a client expectation or fulfilling design outcomes to close those gaps. The reality of what we want to do as a digitally enabled contractor is actually drive more consistency, more ownership and responsibility, and really getting all of the parties across the project engaged digitally. Some of that is through 3D models. Other parts of that is through data-driven activities. Other parts of that are how do we actively report project progress from a singular source of truth. So the vision of end-to-end digital enabled projects are not new, but they are also hugely challenging to actually try and undertake within a project or within a business that is at different stages of project delivery. So digital minimal standards, this is really about establishing corporate and organizational digital governance, and this is across the functional delivery of our business. So this isn't just across design, this is across commercial, estimating, project controls, design controls, construction, handover, commissioning, completions. It's across the whole operational delivery of a project. So as a business, we have digital delivery teams, which I lead digital delivery. That is a team of about 92 that encompasses digital engineering, information management, document control, and spatial systems, which is survey and GIS. We then have a digital strategy team. They are boxed in through the digital leadership team. So a number of these initiatives are led by different parts of the business groups, either digital delivery, digital strategy, or group digital outcomes. And there are SMEs who support these outcomes on a needs basis. So what are digital minimal standards? Well, we decided some time ago through our hub digital leader, Dushi, that we must organize ourselves more efficiently to enable and utilize the power of what we had already been delivering for a number of years. So this was really about the consistency, it's about the project setup. It was around ownership and responsibilities, and really setting a minimum baseline that we would expect all projects to adhere to, that were governed, that were reportable, and would be able to be challenged in any form through our project leadership. So there's a life cycle here, project setup all the way through to benefits realization via the digital handover. Now, we're not holistically saying, we're doing every aspect of digital through our minimal standards. What we're saying is these are minimal standards which are the absolute lowest opportunity we have to change our projects, but they will be consistent across every single project that we do, and they will be mandated and governed. So it's really then about how do we roll this out? How do we brief our teams? How do we drive the acceptance of process change through our group and Australian boards, and actually get the buy-in through the whole business? So this isn't just a digital team level, this is at a business and organizational level. So the drive of the foundational aspects of digital minimal standards are through digital prerequisites. So these are basically definition guidelines of what we will be doing on every project at every step of the project. So pre-bid, bid, design, construction, and handover. So it will be a series of detailed prerequisites, which are the preconditions for digital delivery of that project. These are approved, these are signed off, these are accepted by the board, hence they are accepted by every owner of a function within the business. So prerequisites are the driver of change. The minimal standards themselves are digital build FRP. So we through our business intelligence, know that FRP has been a real significant challenge for us as a contractor to control both cost and materials. And by digitally delivering that prior to going out to market, but before we go to IFC, so we're actually developing up effectively a subcontractor shop model where we can verify and validate every part of the form Rio-Pour process, every bit of geometry of the concrete, every bit of geometry of the reinforcement, every piece of that has been tested through a construction methodology and a procurement process. This is removing significant RFIs post IFC, hence reducing a significant amount through construction phase services back to the designer. So we're really trying to remove all of that construction phase change, bring that back to where it needs to be, which is finalizing design, and drive the outcomes there. Every project will go through regular and iterative digital design reviews and must be fully coordinated and verified by the time we get to IFC. So we've got a series of preconditions around how that would work. The 3D model development, this is around a specification of minimum expectations of what a 3D model should be, how it is constructed, and what are the objects that we must have by developed within that model. So we've come up with a 3D model specification, which isn't a model element authoring table, but it is really saying that every discipline must have a series of very specific objects that we must have within the model that then will support our cost planners, our design controls team, our project controls team, our procurement team, and hence allow us to actually utilize the digital models in a much more effective manner, in a more standardized manner. For the staging and sequencing, getting really down into the right levels of how the program is constructed, how the project planning team actually build the P6 program. Is there enough activity detail in that to actually undertake the reviews and the simulations we need? Does it have the right equipment in there that allows us to really verify our engineered safety applications, our design control applications, and our procurement applications? And then 5D for quantification. So this is embedding metadata within the model, such as QS ID codes, but also being very clear about the default data that an object must contain for an estimator to use. So we've been on about an 18-month journey with our estimation function, going through detailed models and then going through objects in models, and they tell us exactly what they want that default data to be to support their estimation and cost plan build up. So we are getting our functions involved in this as we go along and getting their inputs into this, because this isn't a dictation by a digital team back to the business and business functions. This is about how do we collaborate through a group of technical specialists and delivery SMEs to actually get the best result. And that on the right hand side is really where the key aspects of how the engagement process has been. All of our leadership have been involved in this from a digital perspective. Our design leadership, our technical SMEs, all have been part of this discussion. So this isn't about a dictation, as I said before. This is around the collaboration and an agreement on the expectations from our teams around what they would expect to see and how the teams need to use that information once it's established. So the value and maturity framework comes about to say what is a must right now that we must deliver across our designs into delivery. So we're really focusing on the must-haves at the moment. We will start looking at the other aspects of what could we have, what would be nice to have, or what we absolutely won't do as we go through the next 6 to 7 months. But at the moment, we're really just focusing on the must-haves of the digital minimal standards. That also then starts looking at what the value potential will be across these, and really establishing what is a low to a medium value potential, and what are the areas that really impact our business outcomes and operations. The other part of this is maturity. So digital maturity, not just of the operators within the digital delivery team, but also the users or the people who need to be handed this information. So our construction teams, our design managers. How do we get all of that information across to them? Are they equipped with both the IT technology? Are they equipped with the knowledge to actually run some of these outcomes themselves? So it's removing some of that historical, you're the digital dude, you sit in the corner, you come and help me out when I need you to help me out, and you just tell me what's what. This is about putting the technology, the process, and the opportunity in the hands of the users, and that is allowing us to actually drive a slightly different discussion across our digital teams. So we've come up with a number of blueprints around how this will work across people, process, and technology. So we have blueprints for each standard that we are rolling out. We are through pre-bid and bid standards. We're into design at the moment. Through that process, we have engaged with a number of our design partners. I'm sure there's a number of you on this call who've been in a number of those meetings with our digital strategy team, our design leadership team. I've been in some of those. So this is around then answering the questions across people, process, and technology. These can't be treated as separate. These have to be treated as a group of interfaces. And then how do we define the standard expectations? How do we define the delivery values? How do we really manage and push out the governance? And then what tools and processes are we mandating that we must deliver in our design partner frameworks, in our agreements with our supply chain partners? So this is a digital change to project establishment and governance around that within our business. So we can only do that with the support and help of our design partners and our supply chain partners. We don't deliver or create a lot of what we are doing here. We are relying on the industry who we partner with to actually work with us to actually drive this. And this doesn't stop what a client is asking for. This is just how does Laing O'Rourke standardize an approach with multiple design partners across the country that are actually delivering projects progressively. So how we would deliver the DMS, it's really around 7 steps. It's about scalable instances of digital opportunities. It's around the critical prerequisites. It's around the value and maturity requirements that we want to evidence. It's around the priority delivery against our digital standards, so how we're reporting and how we're governing that. And then who are the owners, where the responsibilities lie, because not everything lies with a digital engineer or a design manager or a construction manager. Yeah, there are responsibilities that are owned by all. And how do we start pushing this out? And effectively, we've said from the beginning of this financial year, all new projects that arrive will be delivered through a DMS governed approach from pre-bid. So one of the blueprints that has been developed is the pre-bid prerequisites, which defines standard expectations, that sets out the clear expectations of the delivery that we are driving. It establishes the delivery value. It talks about a consistent language. It talks about a real standardization with zero ambiguity around responsibilities, accountabilities, and expectations, both from a Laing O'Rourke perspective, but also with our design partners. And it then allows us to actually have a more efficient client discussion as well, because we're all talking the same language, we're all talking about the same requirements, and we've all agreed to the process that's been set out. The governance of that is through our internal governance management systems. They are aligned with all of our other functions, so processes and procedures. These are approved by our technical director, so these are not just documents that are thrown into a portal. These are actually governed and managed documents through business leadership. We've defined a technical settlement delivery requirement. So once we get to the end, prior to the end of the bid, all of our internal commercial technical governance are then run through, where digital minimal standards are a key part of that final sign off by our technical director. and then the digital minimal standards monitoring dashboard. So every project that we do, how do we get through each gateway and demonstrate back to our business leadership that we have not only done the work, but we've evidenced the work to actually achieve the outcomes that we've set out. And then the process and tooling, our governance documents. What are our process standards? We've developed a series of process standards. We've got digital strategy templates that we're actually using to standardize the language and how we present this back to our design partners. Total clarity on our design partner requirements, expectations that we need from the industry to service our standardization needs, our systems and software integration maps, so we can actually place all of our different products and processes into a singular collaborative map and actually understand how they interact, how we transfer and utilize information. And then the standardized management plans that we actually will start rolling out. The 3D model development. So we spent a lot of time through the digital minimal standards team, and a lot of kudos goes to that team for spending an awful lot of time getting into the real detail of what do we need to get from a 3D model, and how do we need to define what we want in that 3D model to actually enact our best use outcomes. So again, we've defined standard expectations. We've defined a delivery value outcome around that standardization process that's been agreed at every level of the business. There's a governance outcome that really agrees what the measurement criteria, how we challenge our projects through monthly reviews in our technical business performance reporting for every single project, our auditing procedures, and then our monitoring dashboards. Again, the processing and tooling pieces, again, are around what do we need to use and how do we need to use them at every step of that design or bid delivery outcome. So we really tried to articulate how the 3D model needs to be constructed that best meets the needs of us, but also accepting how does that change affect potentially how design consultants build the 3D models and form their documentation sets as well. So there is work to go, but there is a good collaboration that we've already had with a majority of our design consultants so far. We've also built a library of case studies, and these case studies are around the value proposition of our digital process. What it has highlighted is some inconsistencies in language, in descriptors, in how we estimate value. But what it does show is we now have this dedicated library that will consistently get bigger around how do we demonstrate opportunities through the case studies to people who may not really understand the technical nuances of what we're talking about, but can read one of these documents and say, right, I understand the language, I understand the graphics, I understand the value that proposes, and that's how I can go and drive that as a project leader, project director, or a project technical lead. So those minimal standards with the case studies around capability, procedures, resourcing, data technologies, who the process owners will be, the roles and accountabilities, any cost implications that could be different types of software or more resources requirement, and the value implications that come out of a digital change process that we are running. A key part of this is how do we start automating reporting from a 3D model based quantification into a format that can be audited by both level of asset compliance, being have we got the right data in our objects that we've specified, and how does that sit in with how our target quantities versus actual quantities through our cost planning teams actually align progressively. So, work in progress models week on week are used to actually start defining a trend matrices. How does that data then get audited, brought into the master dashboard, and linked into cost plan outcomes through WBS, design lots, system breakdown structures, construction lots. All of these things are about how do we get that information into the hands of the right people from a digital model-based approach, and actually then let the estimators look at this and say, actually, there's way more quantity of something here than we actually estimated. We can actually start looking at that. So this is about predictive analytics of a trend, as opposed to reactive when you get to a milestone and realize that there are significant cost overruns due to material. So what does this really say? This says there's value outcomes through consistent digital approaches. This is about certainty. This is about wellness. This is about productivity and knowledge. All of these aspects are around how do we deliver a better and more consistent and aligned digital outcome across all of our projects. So this becomes the umbrella for what we're going to talk about next. So Digital Component Library is an internal initiative about from rail repeatability, and this is about standard, repeatable, reportable, connected and hosted components. So this is about design partners interacting with the component library. This is our supply chain taking those components and elevating them into standardized components for delivery. But this is also not about multiple types of components. This is about as much as possible repeatable and standard components. So we went out to industry a while ago to actually find out what the best platform would be. Spoke to a number of vendors around the overarching platform opportunities. Could it be customizable? Could it be shareable? Does it meet cybersecurity requirements? Where's the data hosted? Can we shut down certain areas of it and put it into just project by project? So the idea was about leveraging digital components in a library of standard components that could be used for manufacturing and supply chain, and also track those components through every project that they're placed in. So we can actually then use that as a way of understanding how many types of a component we're using. Are there many variants of that component across our different client groups, particularly for rail? And how do we actually reduce the bespoke design and actually start sharing across our design consultants, our supply chain partners, a single source of component truth? So what does this component library do? It really helps the advancing of searching of manufacturing components, so you can bring the construction into design, standardizing the data and attributes that we require and specifications, integrates with our work packaging and our software packaging. It can be dynamically updated, and it ultimately monitors and tracks the life cycle of those components from beginning of design to installation and defect management. And if you look at this from a holistic perspective, each component must be able to be quantifiable. It must be a correct and accurate geometry for manufacture. It must have the right product data. It must have the right configuration rules, and it must have the right bill of process, which is around logistics management, engineered safety, sustainability outcomes, and must meet the requirements of going from design all the way through to occupation. And each one of those stages would have an interface to how this product library, component library would work. So components are developed and loaded into the component marketplace by the designer. There will be a series of attributes that must be required. We've written a specification document that goes along with this, saying these are the minimum attributes that we must have to link into our own operational systems. They're categorized. They have subcategories, designer, ownership, and statuses. So, are they warranted by the designer? So is a component uploaded, warranted by the design, so we have all the design controls around that and certification. And is that something a fabricator can take on, or a supply chain partner take on and actually develop into a fabricated component? We're in the early stages of rollout of this. We're looking at predominantly precast elements around rail at the moment. But we will be rolling this out with test projects such as the QR stations at the moment in Queensland, to just test how this will all work in an operational manner. So this is one level of internal business development through a maintainable and supported platform, that we didn't want to develop the platform ourselves. We wanted to develop the overlay to that, but we wanted this to be a industry-led platform we could effectively purchase, and then that backbone architecture would be supported by that preferred supplier. Digital modular bridges. This is an initiative that's been running since 2012 in the UK, and this is around automated modular bridge construction, both at a digital level and at a manufacturing level. So in the UK, we have a business called CEMC, which is a Centre of Excellence for Modern Construction. This is our factory. This is where our components are made, and we have our business processes that lead to an automated digital bridges toolkit process that then links straight into the factory for manufacture. There's a big piece around this that I won't really have time to talk through, but if you go onto YouTube and search for LOR Digital Bridges video July 2021, there is a 7 or 8 minute video that you can watch on YouTube that really explains the whole digital bridges toolkit and how we as a business have been operating this through projects like HS2, with Highways England, and a number of other clients in the UK, and how we wanted to bring this application and process change over to Australia. We wouldn't be able to do it in the same way as the UK. We would need to really work with a horizontal partnerships through our designers and our supply chain partners. But our primary partner so far in the design phase from the concept of this initiative has been WSP, and we partnered with WSP over here as well to actually start certain processes of how we can move the UK approach to Australia. But this is about automated bridge design with predefined component kit of parts elements that have been pre-approved and effectively work together in a configurator. As I say, 2012 to 2023, a number of outcomes that we've delivered. We're working a lot on HS2 at the moment, and there's a couple of opportunities to show what we have there, but this is just really a history of development. We're really moving from the traditional to the product-led approach. So the traditional approach to delivering bridges would be, you have a location, a series of options are provided, a selection is made, you then try and modularize it, and then once you've done that, you go to an approval process. We've tried to switch that around and said, right, we have the component products that we know have been pre-approved. We already have an approvals process by our client, and in most cases, National Highways, HS2, Network Rail. We then, no matter what the location is, can apply those processes to. We can then very quickly optioneer a bridge outcome in 2 to 3 hours with the pre-approved product kit that we have, and then we can very quickly make a selection that then would go off to manufacture. So you still get your drawings. We have the approval in principle, documentation and contracts. We have a predefined component library that comes together to create a data-rich 3D model that allows quantification takeoff. And then these are all linked into reporting matrices that we have around cost of manufacture of every component, the embodied carbon that we're getting out of that. So we're taking this 125 days of traditional design down to 4 days through the Digital Bridges Toolkit. This again is just an overview of some of these areas of significant improvement around the Digital Bridges process, around how we're cutting down time around options reporting and cost estimates, preliminary design, the detailed design and costing, and then the checking of design. We obviously can't challenge too much around the approvals process. They will take as long as they take, but if everything else is being sped up, then in theory, approval should also be significantly quicker because the client has been part of the process from day one. There should be a little film going here. So this is a case study of a new abutment process that we've rolled out in the UK. This is a much safer process of building bridge abutments, no formwork, ease of installation. Take something that may have taken 4 to 6 weeks, we can do in 5 days. A much safer approach, much better quality, much reduced construction cost or construction labour cost saving, much safer, as I've said a few times. But this is around repeatable processes that you can roll out in a much safer environment. Sustainability is a key initiative for the business. Our CEO Ray O'Rourke has been very clear. Sustainable construction is something that he is absolutely going to drive through the business by 2030. So Digital Bridges has started looking at not only how can the Digital Bridges toolkit of components and bridge configuration activities happen, how does that automate through a database of carbon outcomes that you can also link into those objects and actually start optioneering out what that looks like. So if you look at a traditional bridge design process versus a modular component-based bridge design, it's been seen to get about a 4% saving on CO2, which is from that calculation about 90 one-way flights from London to New York. So 4% may not sound a lot, but if you're doing a lot of bridges, if you're looking at something like a W2B project in Australia where we had 80 plus bridges, that is a lot that you're actually saving and proving a much better carbon and sustainable outcome through this approach. So product-based building solutions, and this is the last section. This is something that, again, in the UK has been running for quite a long time through our specialist trading businesses. This is really about modern methods of construction. This is really about the philosophy of design for manufacture and assembly that Laing O'Rourke have been delivering from the early 2000s. But this is around taking it to that next level. This is around how do we partner with a number of groups to actually get the best outcome. And this is around the kit of parts. This is around validation and testing. This is around a quicker outcome to for building delivery. So whilst this is focused predominantly on buildings, our UK business is much more buildings focused than Australia. This doesn't negate the opportunity of doing the same thing around linear infrastructure. So our business has driven digital outcomes or modular outcomes across facade systems, bathroom, kitchen pods, a myriad of structural components, columns, ramps, stairs, floors, walls, etc. And then we have a Crown House Technologies group, also named as MICA, which delivers all modular building services solutions, either horizontal runs or vertical runs or big modules that are just pre-manufactured, tested and delivered to site. This opportunity that you're seeing here was really trying to say the two core areas of UK delivery were through education and residential. So they took that philosophy and said, right, if we take half of a residential unit and half of an educational facility, put them together, but actually then use the component kit of parts, processes, what do we get and how do we find out any problems? And this was really challenging traditional design. Were there things on site that are actually causing this type of approach to actually be slower? Yeah. Do you need a special type of bolt to actually join two precast panels together? If you do and you lose one, that's a problem. So how do you engineer out that type of requirement into something that you can deliver on site regardless of whether you are? So this process actually developed some pretty interesting results. It was a 50% reduction in design effort. There was a 40% reduction in manufacturing time and a 25% reduction in labor. There was a 30% saving in assembly of when you get the components to site, and there was a 30-50% embodied carbon reduction than traditional. So some outcomes of the process were already exceeding Laing 70-60-30 approach to design for manufacturing, assembly and modularization. The other areas that we were really investigating was if you go down a modularization approach, that's talking about standardization. But when you're dealing with an architect, standardization may not be the best for them or for project, because architecture is about innovation. It's about making things look different. It's about challenging the status quo. So we've come up through our processes, looking at the different design possibilities across panel types, brackets, insulation types, window types, cladding types, the protrusion of the bricks, and corner details, and different colors of brick and different arrangements of brick that are done in an automated manufacturing method within our factory. We've actually discovered that we can have over 200,000 possible configurations of a brick facade outcome. So this is about that automation, the use of AI, is about robotics for creation of those panelized systems. So there should be no reason why there's not an opportunity for very different ways of digital architecture happening through a standardized and automated fashion. We've also developed up a series of significant design guides around how this component-based building solution system, product-based building solution system would work. So these are all categorized and engineered. So these are not just ad hoc, oh, let's do this. There's a lot of thought and a lot of engineering, validation and verification through our transformation and strategy teams and our engineering excellence teams to actually drive these outcomes and these technical design guides. And then from a digital perspective, how do we firstly start defining up parametric massing drivers? So you actually start with how do you create the best massing arrangement for a building or a product. So there's a library of volumetric masses that then would actually host detailed pre-configured spaces, such as you see on the right there. So the box that you see on the left would be the complete size of the detailed component on the right. And once you've established the best arrangement, you can actually start getting volumes, areas, and costs out of that. You then can start replacing that with a higher level of detail series of components that actually sit within that mass and have been pre-engineered to meet that design solution. We've also developed up a series, a product called Datum, and Datum is actually an integrated model viewer and Power BI reporting tool. So they're connected. These are then automated in terms of model data being pushed in, that the data viewer is then picking up all of the component information around manufacture, delivery timescales, any missing outcomes, does it meet design criteria? So this in itself has been quite a revolution. We have an alternative in Australia called Mobidex that we've been using. There's a look at how do we combine what Datum is and Mobidex from a whole of business perspective and seeing what's best for business. But as you see here, once you have an entire model that's actually brought into a product configurator, then you can actually understand the number of products, the number of items, how long it takes for total manufacturing time, the total installation time, the total cost of manufacture and the total cost of installation. This actually then helps you with your procurement and supply chain. And then how does that move? That just moves out into the construction site, vastly reduced workforce, much more safe construction, modularized, pre-defined installation. So, the digital demonstrator to the physical demonstrator shows the quality of what you're doing, and also the timescales were massively reduced to actually get that outcome. So in conclusion, we've talked a fair few things here, but ultimately what we're trying to say is digital is a team sport. It's not about a 3D model does everything. It means it has to meet the requirements of every participant to actually get a value out of that. From the matrices on the right hand side, everyone from your bid lead down to your completions manager, who needs what, when, where and how, who's an accountable party, who's a secondary party. But it's about being a team sport. We can't drive certain things that are no use to the whole business. And this is where digital minimal standards, this is where these initiatives are all tying together to actually drive a more concise opportunity for our business, but also how does this roll out into how do we support clients' needs, how do we support our design partner needs, and how do we support our supply chain needs. So I hope you found that useful, and I'll hand back over to Rebecca for any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. That was fantastic. And, just quickly, it's good to hear about the Laing O'Rourke journey. I think many of us have heard certain things and know a little bit about it, but I guess to consolidate that back into what it means, to the business is just fantastic. So again, thank you. If you can try and turn your camera on, I'll jump to because we didn't see, we see you now. Yep.
Yep, now.
I'll jump to the questions pane to see if we have any questions, and I might kick off while we're waiting for some questions to come through. I guess the first question from my point of view is, how are you guys assessing your partners, your delivery partners? Do you have a method for ensuring that they've got the right capabilities, etc.?
Yes, so through the digital minimal standards process, we've actually come up with a series of checklists that actually help us establish, one, the ability, competency and capability of both our design partners and ultimately our supply chain partners. And this isn't about critiquing, this is around saying, where are there gaps? And this is really about the sector gaps. So we know most of our design partners are very good at buildings. We know that some design partners are really good at rail, some are really good at roads, but it's around really trying to manage that consistency and having a really good view of what the Australian-wide view of, say, a design consultant would be, to get that consistent understanding. And then we can sit down with leaders of those businesses and say, right, we really want to use you here, but your ability to deliver in that particular state or that particular sector might not be where we need it to be, and how do we help you get to that next level?
Yeah, because I think that's one of the things that we're finding is the capability piece is quite a big challenge, in varying capabilities, particularly in the large businesses that have their digital cohort internally, but whereas the wider areas of the business just don't have those capabilities. So it's good to know. Any other questions?
Also just on that, it's not just the doers. This isn't just about the 3D modelers. This is about, the leadership of those businesses. How do the technical sector leads who might be managing structures as an engineering outcome understand the digital needs that we're trying to get out of that? So it's the whole gamut of top-down needs we want to help with.
One of the other questions is, you mentioned some of the, I guess, initiatives out of the UK you're trying to bring over to Australia. Do you have dedicated teams focused on that at the moment, or what is the actual process for doing that?
Yeah, we have group digital leads that are either sitting in the UK or sitting in Australia. They're the conduit for looking at opportunities to share initiatives. So how it works, we have a group head of digital, Adrian Sprague, sits in London. We have a group head of technical and design, Andrew Wilsonstowe, sits in London. We also have technical director, both here and in the UK. We have a head of digital for Hub in Australia and in the UK, and then my role as head of digital delivery is an equivalent in the UK as well. So we're always cross-pollinating, and we're part of a group digital leadership team as well. So we're talking very often around opportunities to share.
Yeah, and I think one more, I guess, in relation to that is what's the kind of focus for recruitment at Laing O'Rourke regarding digital? Is there a keen interest in bringing more people on, or are you guys internally upskilling?
Both. There are internal opportunities to step up into new roles. We're introducing new roles as well, like connected insight leads, productivity delivery leads, data and system leads. So we're not just talking about digital engineers now, we're actually talking about what is the wider opportunity of digital. Where do they sit within the framework of digital strategy versus digital delivery? Where's there a crossover? And we're going outside of the regular areas of where you'd be looking at shipbuilding, aeronautical, car building, car manufacture. We've brought a number of people from those industries into our business, both here and in the UK.
And is there, I guess, one more question, is there any appetite for acquisition of organisations, or are Laing O'Rourke focused on any acquisitions in the coming 12 months?
Look, I'm probably not that's not on my pay grade, but it is unlikely. Laing O'Rourke rarely have done that in the past, and we have our specialist trading businesses that we've built up over a number of years that are able to actually operate on their own or with other constructors outside of the Laing O'Rourke construction business.
Yeah, great. Okay, fantastic. Look, we've got a few minutes left. I'll wrap up. Again, thank you, Stuart, for such an insightful presentation, and obviously for your time today. And yeah, we thank you, and I'll just summarise the last few slides now. So thanks again.
No problem.
So thank you, everyone. It's been a great session today. I'm just going to go through the last few slides just to remind you what's coming up over the next few months. We're already in August, can you believe it? So we've got a night networking event coming up this month, which I'll talk about shortly. We have one more webinar, which we're securing at the moment, and another lunchtime event, and obviously our big, our larger event at the end of the year. We are always looking for speakers and sponsors, so if you are interested, please get in touch. But our next event, which falls on the 24th of August, is, I think, will be quite an interesting one, because we have two quite varied presentations. One from Nathan Taylor, who is the Virtual Design and Construction Coordinator at Hanson & Youngkin. And Nathan will be discussing the digital strategy for Hanson & Youngkin, much like today's presentation, but to contextualise it against some of the projects that they've been working on in South Australia. So a very local project and a presentation, which we're really looking forward to. We also have Will Hackney, who'll be here from Victoria, who will be flying over to talk about the digital twin, I guess, debate, and his presentation, a bit satirical, Technology Killed My Digital Twin program. So we're really looking forward to that one, and we're hoping that you all register. There's a QR code on this slide to register if you're interested. Otherwise, visit the Built Digital South Australia website. And I guess thank you to everybody who attended today. We had a great turnout. And again, thanks to Stuart and Laing O'Rourke for giving up their time. So have a great day and all the best. Thanks a lot.